There was a time when things ended naturally. Days ended when the sun disappeared. Work ended when the tools were put away. Conversations ended when silence felt complete. Even thoughts were allowed to fade. Unanswered. Endings were not forced. They arrived on their own. And because they arrived naturally, they made space for rest. Today, that space has become rare. Modern life is not defined by beginnings anymore. It is defined by continuation. Messages do not end. They pause, waiting to resume. Work does not end. It transitions quietly from one task to another, from one screen to the next. Entertainment does not end. It autoplays. Even the day itself rarely ends. It simply dissolves into night while remaining connected, reachable, alert. We live in a world where nothing truly finishes. In many ways, continuation feels comforting. If something never ends, it never fully leaves us. There is always the option to return. Always the possibility to respond later. Always the sense that nothing is truly lost. But comfort slowly turns into tension. Because when nothing ends, nothing is ever fully held either. Experiences pass through us without settling. They overlap instead of completing. The mind keeps track of too many open loops, each one small on its own, but heavy in accumulation. A conversation that once ended with a goodbye now lingers in read receipts and typing indicators. A workday that once ended at sunset now fades into evening emails, late notifications, unfinished thoughts. A story that once ended with a final page now stretches into endless content, sequels, updates, feeds. There is no clear line anymore, only continuation, and without endings, the mind struggles to rest. Natural endings served a quiet psychological purpose. They told the brain, this is complete. They allowed attention to release. They created boundaries between effort and recovery. Without them, everything feels slightly unfinished. Even when nothing is wrong, something feels unresolved. This unresolved feeling is subtle. It does not announce itself as stress or anxiety. It exists quietly, beneath awareness, a background tension, a sense of incompletion. The mind remains slightly alert, not because danger is present, but because closure is absent. And without closure, the nervous system never fully relaxes. This is why many people feel tired without knowing why. Not exhausted by effort, but by openness. By the constant sense that something might still need attention. A message could arrive. A task could be updated. A notification could appear. And so the mind stays partially open, partially alert, never fully closing the loop. Rest becomes shallow. Sleep arrives. But the day does not fully leave. This lack of endings also changes how time feels. Moments no longer stand apart. They blur together. Morning feels connected to work. Work feels connected to evening. Evening feels connected to scrolling. Scrolling feels connected to sleep. The day becomes one long, continuous thread, and when time has no edges, it loses depth. Time without endings feels flatter. Days blur into each other, not because they are identical, but because they are never clearly separated. Memory depends on contrast, on beginnings and endings, on moments that stand apart. Without these markers, days are harder to recall and weeks feel shorter than they are. Life does not move faster, it simply becomes less distinct. We begin to rush not because we are late, but because nothing clearly stops. We feel busy not because we are overwhelmed, but because nothing signals completion. In the past, boredom often appeared at the edge of endings. When a task was finished, when a conversation ended, when a day grew quiet, boredom was the space between. Today, that space is filled immediately. If one thing ends, another begins instantly. If attention drops, something replaces it. If silence appears, it is covered. But boredom was never the enemy. It was a doorway. It was the moment where thought drifted, where reflection happened without direction, where creativity rested quietly beneath the surface. Without endings, boredom has nowhere to exist, and without boredom, the inner world grows thin. This continuous state also reshapes identity. When nothing ends, roles overlap. Work identity bleeds into personal identity. Public identity bleeds into private thought. There is no clear transition from doing to being. Without transitions, identity remains active. There is no signal to stop performing. The mind stays partially in role, even when the task is over. This is why rest often feels incomplete. Not because the body is still working, but because the self has not been allowed to step out. Endings once provided that step. People do not stop performing, they simply change platforms. And slowly, the self begins to feel fragmented, not because too much is happening, but because nothing is allowed to close. Endings were never about loss, they were about containment. They held experiences in place long enough for meaning to form. A finished day could be remembered. A finished conversation could be felt. A finished task could be released. Now, experiences dissolve before they settle, and meaning requires stillness to appear. This does not mean modern life is broken. It means it is incomplete in a subtle way. What is missing is not productivity, speed, or access. What is missing is a permission to end. Choosing an ending feels unfamiliar now, almost uncomfortable. It can feel like neglect, like falling behind, like missing something important. But endings were never about abandonment. They were about preservation. They protected attention. They protected memory. They protected the ability to feel complete. To stop without explanation. To close without replacement. To finish without immediately beginning again. Even small endings matter. Turning a device off instead of letting it sleep. Leaving a message unanswered until tomorrow. Allowing silence to remain silent. Ending a day intentionally, not accidentally. These are not acts of resistance. They are acts of restoration, because the human mind was never designed to live in permanent continuation. It needs edges. It needs pauses. It needs moments where nothing follows. In a world without natural endings, rest must be chosen, and choosing rest begins with something simple, letting something end.